Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Marvel Snap for PC, or more accurately, we're kind of updating my opinion on Marvel Snap since it first came out. Effectively, there was a PC version since launch. That would have been about October 18th, 2022, or exactly then, I think. But that was just a very simplistic uh, version of the mobile game where it was at a 16:9 ratio and there was nothing but blackness on the left and right. Um, there is this thought in history called the great man theory, and I would like to propose the concept of the great man fallacy. In Ben Brode in particular, Ben Brode being sold to us through probably a lot of self-promotion and through just a lot of mainstream video game journalists making it like he was the single person behind the success of early Hearthstone. This is Hearthstone before it became something completely different and frankly started to lose a lot of its fandom. So when he left Blizzard and went to make his company Second Dinner, there was a lot of excitement amongst me and many others that his next game would be the new Hearthstone, a new collectible card game very similar to Hearthstone and very popular and very visually polished. So it was quite a shock when Marvel Snap got announced and released, in that it is very much not anything like Hearthstone. But I, at that point, definitely was willing to give it a try, and I have given it a try for nearly 10 months, which is to say, I stopped playing a couple months ago on Marvel Snap. There was one small point where they made an update to your level here, which, by the way, I'm at level 4,701, which is to say that your level goes on forever and doesn't really matter when you get into numbers that are that high. But yeah, one small update happened in that eventually you get these spotlight caches, and that's the most recent update that's been fairly positive. And before then there was another small update, to be fair, where the collector's reserves allowed you to unlock some of the cards, whereas at one point it definitely was a case where you couldn't get all of the cards or all of the variants of the cards, which this game is super heavy on two types of visual variants of cards, without paying some real world money. But criticism I definitely have seen on the Steam reviews, which are not good for this game, so I do think I am somewhat in the norm, are that with it, almost every other update, it has become more and more expensive to get the newest cards. That being said, if I was to search here, which this interface is different and it is using the fullness of the screen, there's perhaps a lack of labeling here to show that these are your pre-built decks, and it seems like you can now make new pre-built decks, a few more than what you could before. But the filtering here would be, let's see, fairly difficult to find here. I'm trying to find cards that I don't have. Is it this icon? I don't know. Like, I have no idea. Does it make sense that there's no scroll bar here for such a long list? No. So once you start to get into a Windows application, let's see, smaller grid, okay, that's helpful. That does highlight the problem here. The issue here with the cards is there's actually very few cards nearly a year into Marvel Snap. And you get a card like this pixel variant of Ant-Man. And then at some point you'll get duplicates of that card. And then you can level it up and do what they call frame break it to make it look different. Frame breaking is like the first level up where the characters will start leaving the frame of the card in kind of a non-realistic way. But eventually you'll reset it and then you'll have a, not that one, slightly different variant. So this is what was this, but with this little symbol, which makes it a foil finish, which just means the background has a visual effect on it. Then you reset it and you get another random thing, and so this one has a foil finish and a blue glimmer flare, which is just these little blue sparkles versus not having the blue sparkles. And then you'll redo it and you'll get something different. This one has a gold glimmer flare. It's all flash and no substance, to say the least. And because you may play Ant-Man quite a lot, you'll continuously get more duplicates of this card, and you'll continuously get new reasons to upgrade it to get another different flare, white Stardust flare. But that's not interesting. Purple glimmer flare. So there's also Stardust flares and glimmer flares for more variants. Here we have an ink finish, which means it's black and white with a rainbow tone flare. So there's Stardust, glimmers, and tone flares. And that's just one card. Notice that they're also putting the escape button and the close button in a poor interface there. So the cards that I play the most, Quicksilver, Nightcrawler, you have a lot of copies of, which I guess gives you some small bit of variety here. Medusa, but it's not really a great amount of variety. The only way you would say get enough to make an upgrade for something like Colossus, which I don't play, is that you would have to get duplicates from opening the chest. And the loot cycle here is a little weird because you spend way too much time. Probably about half the time I spent on playing Marvel Snap was upgrading characters, which then increased my level, which then gave me resources and duplicates to upgrade my characters more. It was not actually playing the game. And that is the fatal flaw I haven't even mentioned with Marvel Snap, is that the main gameplay, being 3-minute long card loops, just kind of sucks. Some other things that I've forgot to mention is that they do have like a new animated intro that played when I first launched this, and the volume on that was fairly loud. I had to turn it down. The game also was in a windowed mode when I first launched it, and I had to hit Alt-Enter to fix that. But yeah, I'm trying to search cards I don't have, and I cannot search for that for some reason. I cannot figure out this interface. I know that this would be cards that are level 0 to 1. I know that this would be cards that are level 2 as far as their cost. And so on and so on. Search by quality, recent power, upgradable. By default, you would always have this search on. I still don't know what this does though. Okay, this shows you cards you don't have, which this is an example of a card you don't have, where you see a silhouette. Now on PC version, you can see the silhouette a lot better at a higher resolution. So I can tell you that this is probably not Wolverine with the spikes coming out of his hands, but if I was to guess, it is Sabretooth as a character. And your level of Marvel knowledge would explain this better, certainly. A lady with a gun in silhouette with a hair bun back here is not going to give me enough information to really guess on that one. But if you have seen a card, which means you've just seen somebody else play it, you will have the black and white version of it, so then it just tells you the name. This is high evolutionary and the card is not owned. I got pretty close to owning all the cards before losing interest, but getting a new card isn't that satisfactory when they just throw out some new cards anyways. And so yeah, maybe at best I got 90% of the cards. How many of these cards do I have any real love for? As far as like Blue Marvel. Blue Marvel is a card I played a ton, so I have a ton of variants, but as a character, I don't know him. I don't really care about him. So you have that extra disconnect in that if you like, say, Mr. Fantastic as a character, then playing his card limits you to playing his abilities. It almost feels like it would have been wiser to have the cards be completely disconnected from the abilities, in the sense that maybe you would just have a pet character on the side of the playfield that was Spider-Man or Mr. Fantastic, whoever was your favorite character, or that you could even make a whole team of pets on the side of the field to show off, but then the actual abilities should be disconnected. And you could certainly, it could be a case that collecting Mr. Fantastic gave you a different card that would give you adjacent locations plus 2 power, but that would make them have to do twice as much work, and this is a game that's obviously designed around them doing the least amount of work possible. They are effectively just showing off, I won't say Photoshop stagnant filters, but visual effect filters over different kinds of cards, and trying to make you hyped about the idea. It does take 2 currencies, by the way, to upgrade things. We have a couple of cards at the top here to upgrade. So here is a gold finish, gold glimmer flare of Medusa, and when you can upgrade it, you click here, and then you have your duplicate symbol here that would give you use 5, but then you have to use 25 of the main game currency. And then there is a third premium currency also. The PC version does let you just kind of jump up to higher levels, so you can skip just doing 2 uncommon and go straight to rare, which is really an admittance in the game that they don't even care about showing you the upgrade thing. So that's a frame break. The sound effects here were always nice, but that's about the only thing nice. So you do 1, and by doing 1, then that pushes your collection level up, which then gives you a reward almost always of something that I may not have had this new, or I may have had this. You would think you would get more of a feedback, particularly on the PC version, whether or not you owned that variant. But then you have to go back to get back to this screen, which that is a slight improvement, because on the mobile one you would actually end up not heading back to this screen. So then when you upgrade something again, it goes 3D. What do they mean by 3D? They mean that they've made several layers of the image, and the image slightly tilts left and right when you drag it, so it feels like it's 3D. It's a 3D effect like the old red and blue screen glasses, without having to use the red and blue, and that only gave me 2 points, so I'd have to upgrade more things to get 50 credits, then 10 boosters. Boosters could be a booster for any character, so you don't know if it would be boosters for Medusa or if it would be boosters for somebody else. This main screen can be somewhat helpful in that it's moved your daily missions and season missions and everything to the side so you can see it more quickly. But then you have an advertisement here which is not even loading in correctly on this side. And the game inherently has you focus a ton of your time on the collection, which is just going to get bigger and bigger to the point where it becomes unmanageable and you just don't care about it. Or your collection level, which just goes up and up to a point where you don't care about it. Spotlight caches helping a little bit to give you cards you already have. And then finally they want to move you into the shop with the premium currency of gold. So let's look at that. This hasn't been upgraded at all since, compared to the mobile game. This looks exactly like the mobile game. And frankly, it's just a little crazy how much has always been for sale, but it's only gotten worse as far as special bundles that would give you special card variants, which there is not enough consistency on that too. You can see on these anime variants of Storm and Captain Marvel, if that's the art style you like, you're probably not a comic book fan by much in the first place, but let's face it, the Marvel comic book fans are too few in number for them to be the target audience of Marvel Snap. But if you like those art styles, you're going to struggle to get the other anime variants for other characters. You're not going to get a complete collection of the anime art styles. It's worth mentioning that over on the DC side, there is a Superman anime style cartoon that's out right now that's being fairly well received. But on Marvel's side, there hasn't really been any kind of anime art style of any Marvel property in probably a year or two. I know there was some Marvel anime shows or movies or episodes, but that may have actually been 3 or 4 years ago. And in all fairness, no, to be better accurate, the Marvel anime shows were not going for what is called the kawaii style. Kawaii is the Japanese word for cute, cutesy style. So it would be more accurate to call this a anime, quote, kawaii variant. There is definitely in the past animes that are just extremely gory and extremely bloody and more in a realistic style in as far as the body proportions, where the eyes aren't as big, the head isn't as big, the color palette isn't as colorful, and that was the style that the if I recall correctly, that the Marvel animes that I most recently recall from a few years were in. They were animated by Japanese people for a Japanese audience, so I still would call it an anime, but they definitely were not going for cutesy. They were trying to ape the previous versions of or copy the previous versions of the Marvel cartoons. But let's say you don't want the anime style and instead you just prefer Marvel's depiction of death. Well, here's a mech style of death, which they really are just getting to the bottom of the barrel as far as ideas that they're throwing out. Mech variants and dinosaur variants. These are all gimmicks that would have been done in the early decades, in the 40s and 50s and 60s and 70s of comics, where they're just trying to churn out something new as content that anything is acceptable without really making any sense. Again, if you're a fan of mechs, you're probably a Japanese person from a certain age that's pretty old these days. Most people in the West wouldn't even off the top of their head even know what a mech is. There hasn't been, as far as I know, a Marvel series of any importance where the characters are turned into robots, mechs. And arguably, mechs are supposed to be suits that you get into with a human piloting it more than being robots. Whereas Lady Death here, first of all, being a celestial being, seems to just be a robot. But if you did like that mech style, you would really struggle to have all the characters you'd want to play the mech style. So it just becomes this ridiculous mix and match. And that's not even talking about the price. $75. That's way too much for getting one card and a bunch of boosters to upgrade that card, and then 2,000 gold and 4,000 collector tokens, which collector's tokens were added as a small help to let you unlock cards, because before that point, if I'm remembering right, you couldn't unlock some of these cards, and you still can't unlock most of these things with gold if you earned gold in a different way, or unlock them with collector's tokens. If you did love Juggernaut, a mech variant of Juggernaut is not recognizable. But then they have daily offers using gold to try and drain your premium currency, a lot of which are running into random loot box elements of premium mystery variants. At a certain level, I have to blame all this monetization on Ben Brode and his company Second Dinner. Instead of him getting the praise, he really should get the blame. You could certainly pass some of the blame down to it being a Marvel license and Disney wanting to make money, or it being published by Newverse and them trying to monetize it. From what I hear, the beta of this version was even crazier in the monetization. But inherently, this game is doomed to failure because it, like all mobile games, needs to make a lot more money because it's starting off free. And as soon as you have to design a game around microtransactions, it struggles to succeed. Notice here we have yet another glitch. So they had 10 months at least, like, to make a PC version. Missing entry variant, when you should be able to know what kind of variant this is. I couldn't tell you what you would call this, but they should have a name for it. And yes, you can see there's just a lot of cards when you get into the variants that breaks this all apart. The only thing you can spend tokens on is a collection of 3 or 4 characters, but you need massive amounts of tokens here. And as you're scrolling up, this also is moving the selection. So there's an ultimate variant that I think is always available, although it's not always rogue. There's a weekly spotlight that cycles. Nope, Yeah, this one cycles in 55 minutes. You can pin it if you want to save up your tokens. This one cycles in 44 minutes. And then this is a Series 4 and Series 5, which the Series part is another issue with this game that is just confusing it. Because you'd think Series meant something like a season. We're actually very far into seasons. We may be at like season 18, even though it's not been 18 months since the game is out. Series is a level of rarity. So a Series 4 or 5 card is less valuable more often than a Series 5 card. Thus, this being 6,000 collector tokens versus this being 3,000. With this being a Series 4. But also, it's just less likely for you to get it in the regular way of playing the game and opening caches to collect cards from your collection. There's an offer here, I guess, to choose your card, but I guess I probably already have all those cards. And then there is a way to buy extra boosters, spend extra money to buy boosters to upgrade the cards, which might have been a good deal. You end up having quite a bit of this low level currency versus the premium gold currency. And I used this quite a bit early on in the game to jump up my level, but jumping up your collection level doesn't actually help you do anything for it. The only reason, other than daily quests, to come and check out the shop, or even check out the game, is that you have a daily free credit of a pathetically small amount of 50 credits. Yeah, and apparently that's going to reset in an hour just because of when it resets. So that is your motivator, which a lot of games do that to get you to look at the shop, and that's why it's way at the bottom. They basically aren't even concerned about you seeing the gold, which never changes in price, but you can see that 8,000 gold here is $100, and then there's a pro bundle here for $100, which gives you 12,500 credits, which is not enough credits to justify $100. So what cost 8,000 gold here? Well, we went back up here. For 8,000 gold, you could get, say, this one, this one, this one, and that would be about 3,000. Then this one, and that would be about 4,000, 5,000. Yeah. And then this one and this one, that'd be about 6,500. Then that one would be about 7,200, and then that one. So for $100 you could get all of these variants. But it's just visual. It doesn't make you any better at playing the game unless you don't have a copy of these cards. And that is where the split really falls apart here, is that you probably will have the cards if you play the game long enough, if you stick to it long enough. There's not a good reason to stick to it long enough, but like, even though I don't have the visual variants of the cards, the only cards I'm missing are newer cards. This is X23. We didn't see X23 in the shop. This is Spider-Woman. I couldn't tell you what that was. Couldn't really tell you what that is. This looks like this is Hawkgirl. I mean, Archer maybe is her name. Black Arrow's female character, whatever would be my guess on that one. I couldn't tell you what that is. Lady Deathstrike here. Yeah, we didn't know that one. We didn't know that, or we think that's Sabretooth. As far as these other ones that we do know about, none of those are available in the shop either. So what you would have to do is just continue to play the game, and you're going to constantly be in that situation. They are going to balance it out perfectly, so you have to always play to unlock some more characters. Here's X-23, so we can see that was right. Nebula and Silk, all cards I don't have, or you could get a random Series 3 or Series 4 card. This is a Series 5 card, so it would make a lot of sense to take the Series 5 card. But if you're trying to build your deck, your selection's pretty low here, as far as you either want this ability, or this ability, or this ability, or you're rolling the dice for a random ability. But yeah, next Spotlight Cache is at 106 levels of upgrade, which means a ton of upgrading, which I could do for a lot of these if I had the currency. Why the Big in Japan ad is not loaded, I don't know. The daily quests, which we can see here, are also still broken. So the PC version is basically a lie here. They have not fixed anything in the main screen. You get weekly challenges that stack up to 6. Then you have the first week of challenges that slowly unlock. And then you have the second week of the monthly challenge, this month being Big in Japan, that unlocks. And then you have the third week that slowly unlocks. And I guess that's where we are at this point, with the next unlock being in 47 minutes, and then that next lock in a day, and then 4 days from now this chapter 4 unlocks with, I'm sure, 6 more challenges. Which, yeah, I probably have already missed an entire month or 2 of these daily challenges. I didn't hate the daily challenges too much to start off with when the game happened, but with the addition of Conquest Mode, they really pushed me over the line. And I know from another YouTube content creator, he was playing Marvel Snap, and he played Conquest Mode, which too has not been upgraded, and he got all the way to this top level of Infinity Conquest, which I never did, and he was playing against bots still. There's just not enough people to play against, even at the highest level, where you really should be in any game playing against other high-level competitive players. There shouldn't be bots there to fill out things. And even if there were bots there, he had just reached the top of the mountain, so to say. He had done everything there was to do in Marvel Snap, and he lost interest immediately. Whereas I lost interest immediately without even making it to the top of the mountain because of this Conquest Mode, because it takes up too much of your time in a game that originally sold itself as being a short game where you could just open it up on your cell phone, play a game for 3 minutes, then go away. The go away part was a promise that really maybe they never made, but they definitely never fulfilled on. Even before Conquest Mode, you really would have had to play 30, 40 games in a row on a daily basis just to get the quest done. But with also Conquest Mode, they introduced this secondary shop which is just ridiculous to have two separate shops. This is the metal shop with yet another currency that can only be earned in conquest mode, and in that you can get a anime variant of Wolverine, which inherently, yes, a anime style version of Marvel characters in a game would have some appeal, but none of the other variants ever caught my attention. There's not enough of them, and they just don't do anything different. It's not like they're saying this is part of the multiverse of Marvel, and that these are on a different Earth version of Marvel. Earth 1, Earth 2, Earth 3, I think is... yeah, that how Marvel does it. And both Marvel and DC have different multiverses and have gone in different directions. But yeah, if you were going to go with that art style, that would work, but it isn't going to work that much differently in a card game. You have to play Conquest, which is basically you need multiple victories in a row, and if you lose once amongst several rounds of playing against another player, you get knocked out and have to start over at the bottom rung. So it is a King of the Hill style ladder tournament that gives you medals the better you go. Some of the medals will give you tickets that let you start at a higher rung of the ladder instead of starting at the very bottom in case you mess up. But then most of the medals probably should be spent on mystery variants or getting gold. It's probably not as worthwhile to buy boosters for a specific character or a title. Titles don't mean anything, they are just a way of somewhat labeling your character differently. Then there is also a weekly unlock system here, so you come back after a certain number of weeks to unlock more things. The easiest thing to do would be to buy the cheapest 9 things just to get this card. That being said, you can only buy 1 silver ticket and 1 gold ticket, so that doesn't work particularly well for you. Yep. 1 win gets you 15 medals and a silver ticket on the proving grounds. That's not what I meant to do. I guess I have to just swipe here with the mouse, which that's not intuitive. You would think they would add buttons, or that you would have this widescreen so you could see proving grounds. Then Silver Conquest requires 2 wins in a row. It's not specifically 1 game though. It is a number of games between 3 and 5 depending on how many times you snap, which is the main concept of Marvel Snap, and it's just a dumb backgammon doubling mechanic. Most people aren't familiar with backgammon, but backgammon is the old game where it looks like you have little black and white checkerboard pieces and they're on triangles in a wooden box more often than not. In backgammon, if you play with the doubling dice, it is a gambling game and you're gambling points. So you start the game with like 1 point and you say double, and either at that point your opponent concedes and you win that 1 point, or they double and then they spin the dice from being face up on the number 1 to 2. So now the game is worth 2 dice. If then your opponent says double, then it goes from 2 to 4. So then the game is worth 4 if you accept. If you don't accept, then your opponent would win 2 points. So then you can double again, and I guess it goes to 6 at that point. Maybe it even goes to 8. I'm not 100% sure on it, but that's how backgammon's gambling element works. A lot of people don't even play with the doubling aspect of backgammon. anyways, and it's just first one to get all the checker pieces out of the board wins. But that is literally all Marvel Snap is. It's not a creative idea. It's been around for probably 300 years at least. And then you really would just have to lean on the cards. In conquest mode, the more you double, the more points are available, and you just keep on playing until your opponent loses all of their points. You winning points doesn't matter. You don't gain points with every successful round. So in that way, it's probably too negative of a concept too, when it would have been better to win points, and first person to say 10 points wins. But that, I guess, would make it too short of an experience. After you beat Silver Conquest, you get a gold ticket and 370 medals. That would get you to Gold Conquest, and then you need 3 wins in a row, which gets you an Infinity ticket, which then 5 wins in a row gets you the Infinity Avatar, and 3,500 medals, which is a high amount. But yeah, if you need 5 wins in a row, plus 3 wins in a row, plus 2 wins in a row, plus 1 win in a row, that's 11 wins in a row for a game that is way too random and just would not happen. It's just not likely to happen even if you are a really good player. The meta around Marvel Snap is basically nothing. Like, there are some people that have some decks, but if you have the cards, it's such a high question that you really wouldn't be able to copy a meta deck without spending a ton of money, because there's no way to craft a card. Unlike, say, Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, Magic the Gathering, Shadowverse, Hearthstone, there is no generic card crafting dust currency. I can't use credits, I can't use boosters because I don't have boosters because I haven't unlocked the card. There is absolutely no way without going into the shop, being lucky enough that Howard the Duck is available for purchase on the shop, probably spending money to get Howard the Duck. If you need Howard the Duck to win, then you can't play that meta deck. More accurately, it probably would be High Evolutionary as a card. So yes, I can show off the decks I play, or I built, over the course of the 10 months I played this game. But they probably aren't very relevant at this point, and clicking on the deck here isn't really a great way to depict it, but it does highlight the other problem with Marvel Snap in that you only have 12 cards in a deck. Whereas, sure, I guess if you took out 15 cards out of a 60 card deck of Magic the Gathering, because 15 of them would be land mana generating cards, you're still left with about 45 cards in your average Magic the Gathering deck to guess. If you look at Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has 30 cards in the main deck and 15 cards in the extra deck. So you're at about 45 cards for that. Hearthstone, I don't remember the amount, but I definitely would think it would have been closer to 30 or 40 cards in a deck. It is just far too few of cards to play. And they never really approached Marvel Snap as something where they could actually print out physical cards and make an actual game on it. Which they probably should have thought in that way, have that in the back of their head, even as just an option. But it wouldn't make a lot of sense. If you could carry around 12 cards to play a card game, you could easily carry around 30 cards. And there's such little variety compared to the much older card games. And there's a limiting factor with just how many characters are in Marvel that you would even want to show off. Like, noticeably here, you don't have any human characters or love interests. Like, I'm not even 100% sure you have all 4 of the Fantastic Four. You have Invisible Woman, Mr. Fantastic, and the Thing, but I'm not sure I saw Johnny Blaze as a character having even been released. And if you did want to play a Fantastic Four deck, you still would need 8 more cards. Let's see, if we sorted this by name, you probably need to be able to sort this by team. The name also would give you a hint. So if this is a D-named character with spikes, it's got to be something like D23 or something. I'm just making that up, but my guess is it must be some character like that. And then if this is a E-named character, then you could guess who that is too. You could just go through an alphabetical list of characters. Let's see, we have no Blaze as the name. It probably would be Johnny Blaze, though, with a J. But yeah, if you wanted to make an Avengers team, you probably could get some of the Avengers in some iteration of the Avengers, but you wouldn't get any bonus or anything for doing an Avengers team. So this is an L name, this is a K name, which I thought that was Lady Deathstrike. It is Lady Deathstrike. It's an L name before Lady Sif, after K. Spider-Man. So this is an S or an M name. Did we skip over the J's? LMNOP, QRS, T. Yeah, J's would have been higher up here before the K's. Yeah. There's no Johnny Blaze here. And you probably have most of the X-Men. You could probably make an X-Men team, but their abilities probably wouldn't synergize that well. And some of these characters, like Kitty Pryde, are not characters I recognize, at least in that way they are animated. Which that definitely is part of the problem too. If you have a mech variant of the Lizard, it's very less recognizable than the cartoon version of the Lizard as he would have been depicted. Yeah, Johnny Storm might have been his name. No, it was, I think, Johnny Blaze. Unless I am just completely forgetting what the name of the 4th Fantastic Four character is, which is a possibility. I'm not that big of a fan of comics. But yeah, Fantastic Four characters should be way more popular, and you can't even make a deck around it. You can't scroll from this point amongst this subset. So if I was to look at this deck, I'd have to click on every single one of these cards, or I'd have to already know what their ability is. Which this first deck is probably just one of the earliest decks I made, although I haven't really stayed with the game long enough for that to matter. There's not really anything too special about deck 1. which is why it's not labeled. However, this deck, Ongoing, has ongoing cards on it, which isn't that one and isn't that one. I just play those two because that guarantees that you can move a card around. This guarantees that you can play a card on the first turn. But wow, there's a lot of not ongoing cards in an ongoing deck. This deck was supposed to have ongoing abilities, and I must have tweaked it over time. But the main strategy I was playing was Blue Marvel, which gives your other cards +1 power, and then Onslaught, which doubles your other ongoing effects on the location. So you play that with that, and then that's +2 power, which Marvel Snap does try to keep everything fairly small in the power levels. Which, yeah. Cost here, power level here. There is no health or defense abilities, no other metrics. They aren't of a specific style. You're not breaking things down to be like fire, earth, water, light, dark style. Spider-Ham isn't a pig monster. He can't polymerize like in Yu-Gi-Oh! With other pig monsters to create a super pig creature. There is no complexity whatsoever in Marvel Snap. It is the most simplistic baby's first card game, but it's so simplistic that I don't even think babies really appreciate it. And the art styles aren't quite good enough if you were trying to target 11, 12-year-olds, which maybe should be a target audience. But you'll get these daily quests outside of ongoing where you need to play reveal cards. So then it makes a lot of sense to just make a deck that all has the on reveal ability. If you were going to make this a real world card game, obviously this text would have to be at the bottom, but I would expect, and for any new card game, I would like to see more of an emphasis on the art and less of the emphasis on the explanation of what it does. Inherently, I think we are at a point where you could make a card game that has a little pocket, and in the middle of it is a second card that explains what the card does, or you put all the explanation of what the card does on the back of the card, and you just make a collectible card game that requires people to have card sleeves over their cards, which most professionals usually put one, if not two, card sleeves over their cards anyways, or most people who think there's any value in collectible cards. The collectible part of cards is basically a lie in a lot of cases. You could certainly get fancier with cards and have like NFC tags in every single card, and a playmat that scans NFC tags and plays sound effects, maybe shows some visuals, maybe pops up the rules of what the card does, and then the full front of the card could be picturesque. You could go old school and you could have, say, a red filter, so player on one side would have to wear like red, no, it couldn't be a red filter. It would have to be a polarizing screen filter glasses. But yeah, that could work, certainly, where if you had some kind of polarizing screen on the back of a card in the way that you could only read it if it was one way, the right side up, and anybody reading it from the side or upside down couldn't read it, that might work. Maybe it wouldn't, because it would be printed. The security privacy screens on computer monitors are what I'm thinking about. But yeah, a real world card game with a full focus on art. Get rid of the cost, get rid of the health, maybe get rid of even the name would be nice. And maybe you do it the other way. Maybe the rules of how the card plays and a smaller image is on the card, and then there's a little pocket in the middle for a prettier variant of the card. But yeah, there was always that fight between the visuals on the card and what it does, and having to explain what it does. Anyways, this is my reveal deck, which is only designed to do the daily quests of reveal decks. This is my no effect deck, which isn't even buildable at the moment because last time I looked at it, there weren't enough cards that didn't have an effect. Like, cards that don't have an effect just have this little bit of text at the bottom, which doesn't mean anything, but that does highlight that you lose that text when something does have an effect. Whereas most card games would have bothered to have some flavor text and an explanation of the ability if you could fit it in. This deck is a destroy deck, which is built around the idea of cards being destroyed for another daily quest, and that's pretty much all the abilities too. Yeah, you have on reveal, ongoing, no ability, discard, move, and destroy. And destroy, discard, and move are the next ones. So again, I just picked a bunch of cards that would somewhat synergize with that, although there is also a hope that you actually would win with these decks, even though you're unlikely to win with them, which only hurts your chances if you're playing them in conquest mode, and thus I would never play any of these decks in conquest mode. This is the discard deck, which discards cards mostly, although Quicksilver I'm just using to guarantee that you can play on the first turn, since there is a very limited number of turns in a Marvel Snap game. Not being able to play even a single turn is almost certainly going to cause you to lose, and that just speaks to a level of variety as far as the gameplay outcomes that does not exist in this game. It's too simplistic, it's too pre-thought out and scripted. You win or lose more than likely just by having the best deck that's possibly could be made and knowing when to play it, but you barely need to know what to do to play it. If you can afford to play a card, you probably should play a card. There aren't trap cards, there aren't trick cards, there aren't strategies for most instances. This is a move deck, which just moves cards, again, because you get daily quests on that. And then deck 9 I never built. This is an actual meta deck that I tried to build for Conquest. I went online and looked at that. This, by the way, a Series 1 card, so very common, not that great. This may not exactly be the true Sierra Surfer experience, but or Sarah Surfer, but it was the closest I could do, and it synergizes in some way around playing Silver Surfer, which gives your other 3 cost cards plus 2 power, which would just be that card, this card, which makes a copy of itself, so you would have a Brood of 3/2, different art for the Broodling versus the Brood. Storm, Juggernaut, Polaris, and Maximus. And then Sarah has this ongoing effect of making cards cost 1 less, but itself costs 5, so unless there was a special way to get it on the field cheaper, you play this on the 5th turn, there's only 6 turns in the game. So yeah, I don't even think it's particularly that great. This is probably another variant trying to make a meta deck for Conquest, and at this point that's where I was starting to lose interest for sure as far as Marvel Snap. Once they're demanding that I go to a website and build a deck, that's just too much work. Even when I do my live streams on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, but I am not really paying that much attention to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel. I don't want to put a lot of effort and attention into it. I definitely just want to play and be a little absent-minded and unlock some cards and waste some time. But I want it to be a very casual experience. And then I had a whole other set of cards here where you get daily quests around 1-cost cards, with this card being an exception to give +1 power to your 1-cost card in case you might actually win with that, whereas otherwise you almost certainly would lose with 1-cost cards. Same here, 2-cost cards. It's not even really a guarantee that you could have 12 2-cost cards, 3-cost cards, because your collection, if you just started playing now, would be way smaller, and it would be hopeless for somebody to jump into the game now. They would need to do a 1-year anniversary bonus event and give away a lot of free stuff, which this game has been incredibly selfish on that. There's no rewards, no bonuses, nothing being revealed or given to players. There should have been some kind of reward for the first 1,000 downloads, the first 10,000 downloads, the first 100,000 downloads. There probably should be just a monthly reward for every time the game goes down for maintenance or for a new season launching, even if the game doesn't go down for maintenance. Something to make the players feel like they are being treated extremely nicely and pampered. Here's your 5-cost deck, but at a certain level here, it does make a lot more sense to play this and this, which is 1-cost and 2-cost for your first and second turn, than it does to have a deck full of 5-cost cards, when literally, without reducing the cost of a 5-cost card, you're only going to be able to play a 5-cost card on the 5th and 6th turn. So every time I would play a 5-cost deck to get a daily quest done, I would only get 2 points of progress there. Play 2 of them. And it only gets worse with a 6-cost deck, because without reducing the price there, you're going to be able to play exactly 1 6-cost card per gameplay. This guy doesn't lower his price. I don't think any of these lower their cost in any way. It is worth mentioning, let's see, that there are a few cards here that cost more than 6 cost. Let's see, this one cost 8 to start with, and it gets cheaper when each card is destroyed. So it's not playable at all without that modification. And then that may really be it. Inherently, Lady Death is effectively the personification of death in the Marvel Universe, so she kind of has to be one of the most strong cards, and she there sets up the maximum cost, whereas Thanos is very powerful in comparison, and he still is only 6, although he does give you 5 different Infinity Stones. Although in all fairness, you start your deck with 5 Infinity Stones and there really isn't that much of a strategy around it. So you can't just play Thanos and guarantee that you will win. Yep. So the maximum cost is 6. The minimum cost by default would be, I think one. I don't think they've ever made a card that costs 0, but there is a way. Nope, here's one that costs 0, but Yellow Jacket then makes all the other cards at this location -1 power, which you'd have to work around that. And then Wasp is a 0/1. In nearly a year, they have not added any new abilities. They have barely made this this PC version work, and I'd say it barely works at that. Settings here look like they're pretty much exactly the same as they were. I don't know if you really need a landscape toggle. News and updates seem to be non-existent. Now I do have an ad blocker, so maybe my router is just blocking ads, but if that was the case, then why does the Big in Japan now load in here? I think they probably, if I was to guess, just have no news, which there should be some news. The last time I launched this on PC was probably nearly a year ago. You can play friendly battles. There's really no reason why you would play friendly battles. And then there is a distinction here, certainly, around this play button versus going into conquest mode that they're not really explaining very well. With extra room, it would make more sense to explain that this is the deck selection. You just put the word deck selection here or to the side. There is this whole other seasonal aspect where you collect points around this also and try and level up, but you only level up by clicking the play button at the bottom, so that really kills you, because either you spend double the amount of time that you originally were spending in Marvel Snap by playing both Conquest mode and the regular mode, or you miss out. And for the most part, I don't think I've ever gotten any higher than probably Platinum. Maybe we made it to Diamond for one of the seasons. And they're not saying that the seasons really have any name or number to them, but they really do want you to get this premium, which, yeah, let's see, the premium is not even being advertised here in the shop, so there is yet a third thing here as far as your rank here and your rewards here if you get premium, which would significantly increase your season rewards, but it is also the only way to get this mech variant of Dakin, at least for the moment. So if you did want all the mech cards, you would have to pay $10 for this season, and then a new season would show up probably a month later, maybe a couple weeks later. So yeah, there's nothing particularly impressive as far as the PC version of Marvel Snap. So yeah, that then comes down to actually playing the game, which if you're stuck in for an hour, thank goodness, but let's see. Let's play a game of regular. Let's play a game of Conquest and show that off and show that nothing has changed there. You search for opponents. The searching in Marvel Snap has always been good, but nothing here has really been changed other than it is widescreen and you're getting visual effects. Now, noticeably, what they were doing for a while and isn't being highlighted here is that they were balancing things with these different locations, which the location idea I think is somewhat unique, in that you have you have some variation happening there based on the random locations that show up. First move is you don't want to play here because this would lower his attack, and it makes a lot of sense to play here because there's a small chance that the location, wow, the music's gonna be your timer there. It would be much better to have an actual timer talk to you. So there's a small chance that this location will only let you play one card. So you could either play this, that way there would be 2 cards there and you'd probably win that location. 2 out of 3 locations wins you always. A tie wins based on the number of points you have overall. So that kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, but I'll see if I can explain it better. This card gets extra power if it's played in the middle, and then we'll get doubled powered, so it makes a decent argument to play here. And then let's just Marvel Snap. Yeah. People being overly pressured by the timer really just should not play card games, so it really should be a thing here. Okay, so it makes a lot of sense to play this since it's 0 here, and that will give me +2 points on this, and this +2 points, but then they're both going to be turned into Hulks. I can't snap a second time unless the opponent snaps, so we went from 1 to 2, he would go from 2 to 4, and then I could snap again to an 8. It also snaps automatically on the final turn. I guess you are seeing a timer here in the background of the button, and on the mobile phone version I guess that makes sense that you would save. You would save some space by doing it that way, but on the PC version it just doesn't make sense. Also, the Marvel Snap cube is usually in the top center, and I think it's probably a mistake to move it just to make it a little bit easier for a mouse to reach it. And then this is just the amount of energy you have. Alright. And you have 4 energy, which tells you it's 4th turn, but this actually tells you 4th turn of 6 turns. Okay. So I could play one here, I could play one here. If I played this and this, I think that works fairly well. So what I mean by whoever has the most points in a tie wins would be if this one wins, if this player won here, which he's about to not do that, he's going to lose a point and then he'll lose another point, even if I play nothing. If he won this side and I won this side, then 40 minus 24 would be the points that that would be higher. Now, I'm not explaining that well at all, am I? Let's see, we'll have to do that. It would basically have to be, if this was 0-0 and the opponent was winning this one and I was winning this one, but if he was winning by 2 points and I'm winning by whatever 26 minus 40 is, which 14 points, then I win because I'm winning by 14 points if the overall part is tied. It doesn't matter about the points at all, which is way too simplistic of an idea. To as far as the points don't matter at all if I'm winning 2 out of 3 locations. Since this is the final turn and since he didn't snap, this will be 4 points. What are the points really worth? Not much. They just get you up to season rank. They get you... I don't know if they really even give you different rewards. So he played something very powerful on this side, and that didn't help him enough. He couldn't get past that, but you can see some strategy here in that this card was designed to fill up as many character slots as possible, and this card was designed to fill up as many character slots as possible. It would have put 2 drones in this location if there was room for them. This one puts rocks. All of that synergizes around Blue Marvel, giving every character +1 attack. However, my counter strategy of playing the Punisher, which then raises his attack based on the number of opponents in that slot, acted as a good buffer. Just playing on the first turn to have 1 more Hulk character was a good move too. I probably didn't play particularly well by moving the Nightcrawler character over here, but it wouldn't have changed that much. Potentially, if I could have played Iron Man, I would have doubled the attack or double the power level of this location, which would have given me a nice big buffer. And then Spider-Ham is a newer card that I'm not sure really works that well. So that's just your standard Marvel Snap experience. Just a few minutes, really. They're targeting 3 minutes. I got 4 cosmic cubes. I need 7 to get up to the next rank. And I'm only at rank 13 because the season before that carried over some ranks. You lose, I think, maybe 5 ranks. I think I was at rank 18 last time, which last time I also wasn't really playing. And one card at random that I played, or that was in my deck, I'm not even certain, gets some boosters specifically for that card, which would give me just 47 out of 50 to upgrade Iron Man and get yet another variant of it. Ideally, if you're going to make only 1 tweak to Marvel Snap, which really it needs a ton of tweaks, it needs to really just be left on the cutting room floor, and some new Marvel card game should be made instead. But if you're going to make 1 tweak, it should be that you get random boosters for random characters when you play this. Yes, that means that people who love cards don't get as many variants of those cards, but it's just not balanced. Even if it was a coin flip, like half the time you got boosters for cards you played and half the time you got random boosters, that would be a better way to balance it. Otherwise, you do just end up with the problem of having collections that have 5, 6, 7, 8 blue Marvel variants, when visually and character-wise, I just don't really care about Blue Marvel. I only play him that much because of his abilities. So, yeah. Again, if you separated the abilities out, and if I just had my favorite characters on the side of the screen, on the PC version at least, that would be nice. So, we get this pop-up showing us that we've made a lot of progress on daily missions. So that one game finishes 1 daily mission, which gives me some more currency. And so we spent less than 3 minutes on that point, and it made progress to a lot more, which that's far too many pop-ups. Although in all fairness, you wouldn't get that many pop-ups if you were playing the game more frequently. But the catch-up experience is effectively going to be a nightmare because of all that. I want you to draw 160 cards. You can only draw 6 cards per game, so that's nearly 30 games 25 games for one quest. Meanwhile, if you enter Proving Grounds, you would think maybe there would be some variety on the deck you're having to play, or you would get a random deck assigned to you. But no, it's the exact same deck you select. Only slightly different game rules now. But you've also split your player base now, so you'll have less people playing ranked versus people playing conquest. You have a red cube here, and so you now, instead of just trying to earn points in one game, you're playing several rounds betting on how many of these tick marks are available to you. So here's a good move. First, to fill out this card gets a 6 cost card for free. So we'll start with that, and then we'll snap. That means we are gambling now 2 of our tick marks, which there's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 of them. And by the way, if you let that timer run out, you immediately lose, which is far, far too much of a penalty it's far too much of a penalty for this style of gameplay. Like, I could see losing the round and then having a much shorter timer if you just went AFK and stopped playing. So Spider-Ham here transformed one of the highest cost cards in his hand into a pig, keeping its power and cost, which really just means that you are then destroying the ability of a card, a high cost card, the highest cost card in their hand, not in their deck, which may mean very little. A lot of these sound effects are cool the first time you hear them, but they're basically nothing the 100th time you've heard them. Again, I can't snap and double a second time, so if your opponent doesn't want to snap and double, you can't do anything more. Right. I'm not going to discard a card from my hand, so it is turn 4. We want to win here and draw 2 cards, so it does make a decent amount of sense to do this and do this, and then nothing's going to beat you. Now, the best strategy I've seen for Conquest mode is to really never double in the first place, so my opponent here is playing correctly. Like, the people who gamble and double a lot end up losing because they have that gambling mentality and no other real strategy. So I could move a card over here. If he moved a 5 cost card, is that what this does? Both players can move cards to this location. This is a 5 cost card, so if you did a 5, it would be a 13. I could move the 2 cost card back this way and do that, or I can leave everything the same and I can just play this card, or I can just play this card, which actually this card makes the most sense. So probably best to just leave all your options open, move no cards at all, and leave it as it is. You move this card over here, which gives him the 13, but then this guy gives plus attack to everybody. Alright. That did hurt me. Final is going to be 4, but it kind of doesn't matter. I play Onslaught, I double that, I win this, and him playing a 10 cost card here is not going to help him. I won't win this side, but you only need to win 2 out of 3 anyways. I think we have this locked. But this is the problem with Conquest, is best case scenario, unless he retreats, which the whole retreat mechanic was supposed to be this amazing concept with Marvel Snap so you can reduce your risk. I never retreat. And they call it escaping instead of retreating, and it's weird that they're using the retreat phrase again because but yeah, for most gamers, the mentality of backing down or retreating and escaping is just not something I would ever mentally engage with.
Victory!
It would have been better for my opponent for him to have retreated. Notice that the retreat button now is concede, otherwise you have to fairly quickly say you're ready for the next round. Which is the same person. He just now has 4 pips missing, but now you've at least doubled the amount of gameplay from 3 minutes to a 6-minute game, and let's be fair, it's really going to be closer to 10 minutes of gameplay. After turn 5, destroy cards. Your destroyed cards revive here. This is a new location, although clicking on it only makes it slightly bigger, which is helpful, I guess, for a
Opponent snapped.
that is helpful for a PC version of the game to be able to see things bigger. This time he snapped because I guess he's playing a Infinity Gems strategy. First one draws 2 stones from the deck, so he has more stones now. Destroy a card. So the risk here is either we play this here and destroy a card and get 2 energy next turn, which is probably a good move, and we're gambling on him having Thanos or something powerful in his hand first, because the unrevealability here will happen still. That is definitely a sacrifice, where he's probably going to play a couple stones. Yeah. This one and that one, although notably there's no log here, and I think the mobile version has a log somewhere. Yeah, I'm fairly certain that there was a way to see what just happened there. Destroyed cards will revive here. His destroyed cards will revive here too. Ooh, these two are going to synergize way better than I thought they would. Okay, well, then let's play this. So, kind of obvious as to why he would snap here. His strategy's decent. If my opponent wins here, I lose 4 pips, or maybe even 8 pips. Best case scenario, you would snap all the way up to 8. And, well, that just destroyed a big part of his strategy by replacing the entire deck with random cards. But yeah, if the first game snapped up to 8, you still are going to have basically a 6-minute experience. You have to play that second game. There's no way to win in one. Let's see. Let's do that. And I can't snap to 8, although he could snap to 8. The question is going to come down to can I
am Iron Man.
win here? Probably can't. None of my cards were discarded apparently, which is not surprising. Ruin the location. Okay. Well, he played cards expecting them to come back. I played cards expecting them to come back. So, it will probably irritate your opponent to do this. So let's do that and see if that maybe works.
It's clobbering time!
Okay. So this ability isn't working and yet we're somewhat winning. So it's basically all we can do here. And see, the final is not going to be 8, it's going to be 6. So it goes 1 to 2, 2 to 4, 6, 4 to 6, and then final, I guess if we had snapped to 6 would have been 8. Of course, it probably would make a lot more sense to retreat here. But if I win, that's it for this conquest. Of course, if I lose, then I would have to do yet another conquest to try to even get to the next round. And I don't think you get any rewards at all for just playing. I don't think you get a small amount of medals. So I lost, but effectively on your third game here, it doesn't really matter. Now when you get into the third or fourth round, the rules start to change a little bit in that it starts to start with a minimal snap that is higher and try and speed it up. That way you don't end up going potentially 10 rounds where nobody snaps at all. +3 max energy. It's not a bad idea.
Snap!
It is very stupid to snap the first turn because it gives information to your opponent and it really is just a gambler mentality, which that was one of my problems with Marvel Snap originally, is if this is supposed to be baby's first card game, it does heavily lean into a gambling mentality that could be easily avoided. I don't really appreciate how gambly some of the mechanics are. I definitely don't appreciate the microtransactions. This is not the kind of game that if I were a parent I would give to a kid and say play. Even though at the first announcement the idea of a card game with Marvel characters screams that it should be for little kids. Take note, the max can only be 4 now because I only have 4 pips, which means even if I win this, I have to do yet another game after this point. Yep. Which, yeah, the more you gamble, the higher chance that you're going to drag it out and make conquest games last longer. I swear there was a log. But the interface here for little icons and interacting without actually interacting is still here, but that's something I never engaged with for a second. We'll do that one. Are we on turn 4? Okay. We'll do that one. And then, yeah, it's best to just leave everything else, I think, where it is. Now here's the problem is I filled this up to get +3 max energy, and I really am not going to need +3 max energy. I want as many characters because of Blue Marvel, so yeah. Try and keep them all alive. Would be nice. Okay. Go ahead and play that and double the attack there. One of the mistakes in playing Marvel Snap is that you will play for all 3 locations when you probably should strategize for just winning 2 locations and strengthening yourself. But the fact that you can only have 4 cards at max limits any real strategies. The fact that you only have 12 cards in your deck to start off with limits your strategies. The fact that you're only playing 6 turns limits your strategies. Now, in all fairness, if you look at the reviews for Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel, the main complaint is that Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games take 20 to 30 minutes to play, and they're just getting longer and longer, and there are way too complicated strategies where you're playing 5 to 20 cards in one turn for a 1-turn kill or a 2-turn kill solution that is countering or setting up counters for any kind of strategy that might defeat your 5 to 20 card combination gameplay mechanic. So it is totally possible that it's totally possible that you could get too complicated in card games, and that is another complaint for most older card games. Although, in fairness, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is 25 years old. Magic the Gathering even older. Hearthstone didn't get super complicated until many years into it. The fact that I've lost interest in this game in less than a year really shows that feature creep, power creep, and complexity last longer. Yes, it'd be nice if we could find a happy middle where card games are somewhat limited and not overly complicated, but this is just going far too far in the other direction of being too simple. Yu-Gi-Oh! With its latest anime on Hulu is promoting a new version of Yu-Gi-Oh! Called Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush, which is a card game that's really only in Japan at the moment, but certainly does kind of make some sense 25 years into the regular trading card game that they might try to... It's my turn, but I can't play, so I nearly accidentally surrendered there. Move everything to the right. Okay. Do that then. As far as the newest Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime explaining Yu-Gi-Oh! Rush, it basically reduces the number of monster fields to 3, somewhat like Marvel Snap, and makes it so that you can basically summon anything without any cost, which explains things, and then you can play as many cards as you want. It seems to be the case, and then you can draw up to 5 cards, or you have to draw up to 5 cards after every new turn, which, yeah, it drastically simplifies and changes what Yu-Gi-Oh is, to the point where it's Yu-Gi-Oh Rush really is just Yu-Gi-Oh Rush is just using the same visuals of the cards without using any of the rules. So yeah, I would kind of have a hard time believing that the Yu-Gi-Oh Rush is going to come to the West at all, or if it does, that it would be super popular. And always, Yu-Gi-Oh being 25 years old and still having all of its cards be fairly playable. Let's see. So here's the trick now. I move this, and then maybe he wins this side. Or I move this to win this side, and maybe he doesn't. Like, there is probably a better move here. Do something like this, this, and then that would leave 2 here. So let's instead do this. That's probably not the smartest move, but we'll see what happens there.
It's clobbering time! Victory!
Does that feel like a victory in that case where I was playing really good strategy? Not really, because there was a huge amount of randomness there in that he moved cards to the left. And if you know all the cards, maybe you could have seen that maybe that would have happened, but you really have no way of actually knowing that was the strategy. And that is another problem with card games that are so simple, is that there is no strategy around it. So I get the crown. There's no extra reward for having 4 pips remaining versus having all the pips or only having 1 pip remaining. That gives me some boosters, probably not a lot, for 1 card in my deck. Whereas if I had played 3 or 4 games of the regular, I would have gotten 4 boosters, which would have unlocked more cards, which inherently points out that you really should only be playing Conquest mode if you've already unlocked all of the cards in the game, which you really aren't ever going to unlock all the cards in the game. So then that gives me slight progress on daily quests, but I'm not sure I actually finished a single daily quest in that. And it gives me an entrance fee to now do it all over again, but twice as long in Silver Conquest, having to get 2 wins in a row, which is more difficult. Then if I got to that point, I would be able to go do it 3 times as long, getting 3 wins in a row. Then if I got to that point, I'd have to do it for 5 times as long, getting 5 wins in a row. And the only thing that really is going to save you here is you can get like 1 silver ticket with medals, so you don't have to do Proving Grounds 1 time. But if you would have stuck at the Proving Grounds and never won at all, you would never get any medals at all, so you wouldn't be able to purchase anything. And the amount of medals you win from even winning Proving Grounds was exactly 15. So that was literally the only thing you could have purchased. Yeah, so they might as well just have given you 2 silver tickets instead. It's weird that the close button's back here when you'd expect there to be like a back button closer to this point. So yeah, in all of those games, that got 3 daily missions done, but none of that counted towards winning a match. I don't know why that wouldn't count. And no progress was finished as far as this first chapter, or this second chapter, or this third chapter. If you could just wait till the last week or so of a month and do all of these, you could save yourself a decent amount of gameplay. When you get to level 5, by getting this fourth currency, it'll give you 100 credits, 10 gold, and 100 season pass XP. Then if you get higher, you get a little bit more, and then if you get higher, you get a little bit more. Far too many credits and currencies in this game, though. Yeah, in best case scenario, you get to the top, you get 100 gold, which is nothing, 500 credits, which is nothing, and 900 season pass XP, which probably isn't that much either. Season pass would be over here. Yeah, 500 season pass XP doesn't even get you from level 1 to level 2. You need 1,000 for that. Just really pathetically small amounts of rewards for a lot of investment and a lot of time in a gameplay mechanic that's just not fun. Something here cycled over, so there's yet another free currency. There's no catching up if you miss that free currency. And then that just brings you back to the same loop here, where you would come to the menu here. Excuse me. You would come to your menu here, and the cards that you play normally are now upgradable again because you have boosters for them. You would upgrade from that to a frame break, so now the image is going outside the edge of the frames. The fact that it is 5 upgrades is a big problem here too. Then you make it 3D. Really, there should be about 3 upgrades at most. If they got rid of the frame break and the first upgrade was 3D, that would be fine. And see, now we got 50 credits back for that. Then you go to Epic, which says it's animated. But what does animated really mean in Marvel Snap? It doesn't mean much of anything. It just means the background has this very cheap animation shimmer to it. The actual character is not animated at all, and the image of the card is now slightly tilting in a loop, but you could have always done that even before it was animated. 10 more boosters for Multiple Man, a card I don't play. And then the next thing would be to go to Legendary, which I can't afford. There is a technology called Live 2D that takes 2D images and has points that they pick out where the image slightly stretches and skews back and forth, so it kind of feels like they're swaying back and forth and that there's some life into them. Depending on how good you are with Live 2D, that can lead to a character looking like they're doing full animations in, or if you're doing it fairly simplistically, it is just them kind of swaying back and forth. But it is a major improvement, certainly, compared to a static image of a character just staying still, or even a static image with fake animation behind it. It's all so incredibly cheap though. For a Marvel property, you would just expect way more polish here. And so nothing else is upgradable because I'm out of credits. If I had more credits, I'd upgrade more things. Even gaining collection levels and upgrading things are part of the daily quest, so you have to engage with that. You can't save up your credits really. But yeah, more collection. Where is my collection level? How do you even get to it? Yeah, you would think you could access everything that's available to be accessed on this main screen, and you can't. You have to go here, and then... Wow, you may not even be able to get to that screen. I'm fairly certain you can. It would be crazy if it was in the menu. No, here it is. It just says level, it doesn't say collection level. That's why I'm missing it. And this is just the mobile phone interface. Almost every secondary screen in this game still is the mobile phone interface. But yeah, with more credits, you would just keep going down this path, and you would get more credits, you'd get more boosters to spend more credits, to get more cards, to get more variants and upgrade your cards. With the Spotlight Cash, there is a small goal here, but once you hit this Spotlight Cash at level 4,810, the next Spotlight Cash is almost certainly very far away. Yeah, 4,930, so it's 120 levels higher to get to the next Spotlight Cash, where you would get some good cards. So yeah, with that, I am thoroughly unimpressed with Marvel Snap as a card game in general, and have no desire to play it, and have quit playing it in less than a year. I can't really recommend it to little kids because it's too gambly. I can't recommend it to Marvel fans because I haven't even mentioned this. There's no story in here at all. There's no talking about what would have happened in the Marvel comics, no references to the Marvel comics, which is a big problem with a lot of Marvel property things, is that it would make a lot of sense if clicking on a character would show you their first appearance and probably link you to a marvel.com website where you could read the comics, or at least read a few comics for free and then have to pay to digitally read other comics, or at least link you to a Marvel website where you could buy the comics and have them mailed to you, or where your local comic book store might be. But there's just no tie-in to that at all. There could be a unique story around Marvel Snap itself, but they haven't bothered with that. So I have as much knowledge about Squirrel Girl now that I would have had about Squirrel Girl a year ago when Marvel Snap launched. And that's just a kind of lack of polish overall. Yeah. Ideally, I would say comic books are so niche and so valueless, really, that giving away entire decades worth of old Spider-Man comics with a tie-in to every single video game that has Spider-Man in it would make some sense. Like, it really would, to just be able to say, here is issue 1 through issue 50 of The Amazing Adventures of Spider-Man. It's just in the game. You don't even have to go to a website and make another account. You probably would send them to a website. But yeah, those old comics, they should be thought of as advertisement for newer Marvel comics, instead of being hidden or not mentioned. And yeah, in general, I just don't think Disney cares about Marvel because they have other things to focus on, or Marvel as comics, and they just want to make the Marvel movies. Although inherently the Marvel movies in its late stage now is getting fewer and fewer successes. But yeah, I find this extremely lackluster, and if anything, the lesson I've learned from Marvel Snap, and I will end it at this, is don't make heroes in the video game industry. Don't believe the hype that Ben Brode is going to be this genius creator that's going to make a brand new style-breaking card game that everybody's going to love. Don't assume that a licensed property, even with Marvel or DC, is going to be a good game. Inherently, a lot of Marvel licensed games, or licensed games in general, have been pretty terrible. And maybe the other lesson is don't change that much when it comes to collectible card games. There's a certain level of expectations where people come from the history of playing either Magic the Gathering, Pokemon the card game, Yu-Gi-Oh! And if your game feels nothing like any of those games, then it's probably going to be too weird. Anyways, that's going to be it for this update. I seriously doubt I would ever do another update for Marvel Snap though. I'm done with it. I will move on to playing other games. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to support me further, there's some links down below in the description box. And I guess that's it. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.